author of 21st Century Superhuman. This is our 21st Century Superhuman show, and today I have with me Tom Salas. Tom, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks, Gary. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and you have recently been in Dominica, which is an island in the Caribbean, post-Hurricane Maria, bringing plasma tools to the island and seeing the contrast between the place that you built, which has turned out to be kind of an oasis in the hurricane, which taught us all some amazing things, right?
Yeah, it was a big contrast. It was the island's more or less ruined. It's a beautiful, pristine rainforest island. It's about 30 miles across, and it's an island of rivers and forests and very beautiful. And the eye of Hurricane Maria passed right across the island. So there was no part of the island that was untouched. It basically ruined the whole island. So you've got, whatever trees were left standing, there's no leaves left on them. And 95% of the homes were damaged, either with their roofs gone or parts of the roofs missing. So you've got a lot of displaced people and a lot of chaos. It's set the island right back. It's gone back like 100 years. And
wow.
It's like a war zone. It feels like you've got no light, you've got no running water, and very little food. The normality is starting to creep back, but everything has gone right back to basics. So it's rough. So I was out there trying to show some of these people what we can do with plasma to come up with some of the solutions that will make life easier when you find yourself in those scenarios. You know, how to purify water, how to relieve pain, how to regenerate the garden if maybe the goodness has washed out of the earth and that kind of thing. So I was doing some workshops and stuff out there. And it was pretty heavy, man. It wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy journey.
That's an interesting thing, because we've been through this season of hurricanes happening and a lot of disasters, and people have said, oh, we want to go help with the hurricane. But what you learned when you went was it really touches the soul, it touches the heart, and it can be challenging, to say the least. I know I experienced one of the hurricanes in Florida, where a household that I live in was on the west side of Florida. The hurricane was initially going to go up the east. It came and went up the west. And it was supposed to be Category 5. And by the time it got to this location where a whole lot of light workers, and there's a whole lot of plasma energy that's been created, and plasma tools, GANS and health pens and Magravs and all of that, it turned into Category 1 or almost 0. And my van was sitting at 4 feet above water level, and it was fine when there were supposed to be floods coming in. So we're starting to see, I know I've seen people post things like, well, you know, where's the free energy device? But what you and I both know as students of the Keshe plasma technology, and we've both been students for a couple of years, and we've been putting all these elementary tools into practice, such as making GANS, which is gas in its nano state, such as making what we call health pens or pain pens, which are coils of copper. These are simple ways that we are educating ourselves as to how plasma science works. So it's a whole nother thing. Yes, at some point we will have free energy devices, but that is very complicated because it enters into the world realm of, do those get used for a good purpose? And that's another reason that the Keshe Foundation has come out with One Planet, One Race, One Nation, and that we're moving towards signing treaties for world peace, because we wouldn't want this new energy to be used to hurt anyone. And so there's a lot of complexities to this that people don't always understand what's going on in this journey of moving into a new and better culture. But meanwhile, you and I and many people around the world now have been practicing what I call the elementary plasma skills. You know, it's like we're in elementary school learning a new science and learning how this works. And we're going to see some really great pictures in this slideshow that we're going to do here and look at how we can literally see that plasma in the fields. And I think the great thing about what you've just done is you have helped create a blueprint and demonstrate to us how plasma can actually preserve plant life and the beauty of a piece of land and a safe living space. And it's so exciting.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and to me, we're, like you said, we're in the elementary stages of this, and it's paradigm changing stuff. So it's a big process. It's not just suddenly going to go like that we have access to all this. You know, the whole world is there waiting for this free energy device, and it's a process. There's no point in suddenly landing that on the world and it causing. It would cause some sort of a collapse for that stuff to come in. The old has got to dissolve away before the new can come in. And I think a lot of us are on that journey of understanding now that it's not just energy we're looking at here, free energy and light. We're looking at the full spectrum. We're looking at agriculture. We're looking at health and wellness. And these are the things that excite me. I'd love to see the free energy device. You know, that would be great. But basically, just the entrance point to me is fascinating, and I haven't got past the entrance point yet. Even after a couple of years, I'm still wowed by the things that we can do with those absolute at the start, the basics of understanding plasma. And so, yes, it's a process, and there's enough there just at the start of looking at what this stuff can do. There's enough there to gift other people with some tools that are really, really helpful tools. And if you dip into a scenario like I've just been into, which is that post-disaster scenario, those tools start to look really, really, really helpful, you know, because yes, like I said, everything goes back to basics at that point in time. And so if you can just show someone, for example, how to create a structured water that will boost your immune system, and that's going to stop you being so susceptible to disease or sickness and what have you. Those tools are invaluable at that point in time, you know. So that's what I was doing, was showing those guys. I initially started off by trying to get in touch with different groups and go through different organizations, and communications were so bad on the island that it just proved to be really difficult to make proper contacts and have proper communication. So in the end, I walked down to the village, hooked up with some of the local farmers and said, yo, do you want to come and have a look at this? And I'm happy to come down and do a workshop for you guys. If you can, you round together who wants to come. And it was very unorthodox. It wasn't sitting in front of a whiteboard. We were in, you know, a little shack essentially that half of it had blown down, chaos everywhere. And so it was very unorthodox, but it was beautiful because I was able to show them the little ABC of plasma, which, you know, it can be quite complex and quite lengthy, trying to show this stuff, but in its essence, it's very simple. So it was beautiful working with these guys because they got it. Yeah. Really quickly, they got it, what the essence of this stuff was. So for me, my start point was to show them how we can just very simply use ocean water, yes, to create a fertilizer, which essentially is in the plasma state, and, you know, help to regenerate the crops, because basically Dominica has two parts to its economy. One is agriculture and the other is tourism. Both of those have gone back to zero. Right? There's nothing there. So these are just cool. It was very nice to be able to show them how, you know, and they were very appreciative of it, and they got it, which was great. And they got it on a deep level too. You know, they understood this as, let's say, ancient knowledge coming back. Yes.
And let's just say, as I write about in my book, 21st Century Superhuman, in this quantum world, so to speak, we are remembering that we are creators and that we are surrounded by a field of life energy as souls, and that we can convert that life energy into things that benefit us. And I think that's really kind of at the core of what the plasma science teachings are about. So it goes beyond just, 3D, what can we create and manufacture out of this, but how do we also connect with that field, give it our influence, our love, our attention, our vision, and watch that field manifest things for us that are beautiful.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful way of reconnecting to earth and reconnecting to spirit. When you start working with plasma, that's something, well, I don't know if that's the case for everybody, but for me, it just happened automatically. I mean, I've always been quite a rootsy person, but when you start to see how through the plasma you can influence your surroundings, and you can start to tap into energies that are there to really get that conscious creation stuff flowing. And once you start working with the plasma, you just step back in awe and start feeling that and living that. And it's beautiful. It's a really, really exciting experience when you start to tap into those fields that are there for us, that where the doors open, and they really do start to open. And a big part of this is you and your how centered you are and how in touch with spirit and the earth you are. But the plasma is a wonderful vehicle for kind of accelerating that, and bringing it in a little bit quicker, because humanity's got a long way to, as we all know, humanity's got quite a way to go now, but we can see that consciousness is expanding at this point. And for me, plasma is a wonderful way to kind of accelerate that process and strengthen it.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and look at some of the images. Trying to decide, should we do the little video first of you showing the contrast of your place, or go ahead and jump in and look at some of the pictures?
Sure. So what I did when I arrived in Dominica, because I was living there for about 13 years. I was living there. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, let's go ahead and look at some pictures. Should we look at some pictures a second? And you can talk about that while we're looking?
For sure.
Let me
for sure
those on the screen.
So I was living there for about 13 years, and so it became my home. I'm originally from England, and Dominica actually I became closer to Dominica than I felt I was to England. And so it was a shock to arrive back and see these images. What you're looking at here is the capital city, and
wow.
It was ravaged. Basically, you've got a big river. Dominica prides itself on having 365 rivers, and that in the end became a problem to the island, because when that level of heavy weather hits, any little ravine, any little stream, any little river just turns into a raging torrent. And what happened here is there is one of the larger rivers runs through the capital city, and you've got the points where they've engineered in bridges and what have you, and they just blocked up instantly with the volume of trees it was that were coming down the river. And so the river burst its banks and then just devastated the island. So you've got, on one side, you've got the wind blowing at over 200 miles an hour, which is taking off roofs and bringing down huge amounts of rain, which are then overflowing the rivers. And then you ended up in the city. They told me there was 6 feet of sand in the city. So imagine that. And there are some, these are the images I took. There are some images, and this is 1 month after. So what you're looking at here, it's hard to believe, but this is 100% better than it was the day after. The day after, the images were just like, wow, unreal. So the place got devastated.
And people were blown away. I think, coming from a more, I guess, I'm from the United States, so I'm used to houses being built a little more strongly so they don't get blown away as easily. And maybe we have a better infrastructure. So what you and I were talking about a little earlier is in a poorer country and where there's simpler construction, partly even because of just the weather. needs, you know, are
Yeah.
simple.
And you're a lot more susceptible. And what happened in Dominica was almost the reverse of what you were saying of your experience. And that was that these guys were expecting it was categorized at a hurricane, at a category 2 hurricane as it was approaching. So everybody, they were more or less bracing themselves for some heavy weather, but they knew what to expect. And it ramped in the last hour or so of it approaching. It ramped from a category 2 into a category 5, which was maximum. And if there were higher categories, according to the wind speeds, it would have been a category 7, but they don't exist. And so because they were braced for the category 2 and then received what was a off the scale hurricane, they just weren't ready for it. And so it caused maximum damage, and it devastated the place. And people Dominica is one of the poorest islands in the Caribbean, so they were already living, you know, there is a middle class. And actually what I observed was it's a leveler. Be you rich, be you poor, you got it, and you have some stuff to deal with. And now I actually, the ones who are feeling it a lot more are that middle class society there, who are living in well-built homes and what have you, but they've got their roof blown off. And now every time it rains, you know, it's a tropical island, so they're still taking rain day by day, and everyone is now suffering. Everyone's under tarpaulins and what have you. So they're feeling it. They're really, really feeling the pinch.
Let's take a look at, so how did you feel, Tom, when you saw this? Because I know Dominica was your home for several years.
It was horrible. It took a lot of energy to, so what happened, the scenario for me was I arrived in the airport, you arrive in the north and you drive down to the south, and you drive through the rainforest. And there are a couple of little villages scattered about here and there. And to be honest, Dominica's an island I know very well. I know every part of it. And you couldn't even recognize where you were. I drove top to bottom, and I was asking the taxi driver, where are we now? He would tell me, we're in such and such a village. And I wouldn't know that village. And
it's amazing there was a road. It was amazing you could fly in and out. And it's amazing there was a road that you could drive, and there was a taxi running, right?
Exactly. And the reason we were able to do that was because we'd waited a month. And you would not, if you tried to get into a disaster zone instantly, you wouldn't be able to.
No, you wouldn't be able to.
Well,
let's look at, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it was shocking because basically, you know, if you're a nature lover, and that was one of the reasons why I ended up there in the first place, because it's tagged as the nature isle of the Caribbean and it's pristine. It was like it was horrible because all these trees were just scattered around like matchsticks, you know, just like it was just, there was no order to the place at all. It was just chaotic. And so for me, it was a real heart-wrenching moment because the nature has been devastated. And, you know, you just stand quietly for a moment, and where previously you would have heard cheep, 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 you know, life. Right. It's nothing. I mean, it was just, to me, I think the wildlife, the birds and the wildlife that lives there had been reduced down to like 25% from where it was. So to me, that was just like awful. Yeah. And it took a lot of energy. It took a lot of energy to just be there. And it wasn't a holiday. It was really like, if you just drove out in the day, because my mother still lives there, and we'll go into this a bit deeper in the chat, but she's still there. So we were driving out and seeing what we could see and do and whatever.
I mean, it
was exhausting. It was just exhausting.
Was there even food available to eat?
Yeah, it's starting to, people have been living on aid packages. So village has been getting a quota of aid, which is then getting handed out to the folks, and people literally been living on rice and beans that comes through in these aid packages. And stores, in the time I was there, I could see the stores were starting to open as the port is starting to be able to, and the port is absolutely just overwhelmed with the amount of, like, there's a lot of aid coming in and what have you, so it's very difficult to maneuver the port if you were trying to get packages. You know, people were saying to me, can we send things for you to help? Can we send? And I had to basically say, well, no, just you know, just send us a loving intent, because even just receiving physical stuff was difficult, you know.
Right. So it's nice that there were aid packages. It's good to hear from a global scale, you know, that there was a reaching out. And I mean, was some of that United Nations, or do you have any idea?
Yeah, it was United Nations, and there were a lot of charities that were helping out too.
Nice. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
and it's still not simple getting this stuff and receiving it. There are a lot of people saying, you know, there'll be a family of 2 there receiving their aid package, and there'll be a family of 10 there receiving the same aid package. So for them, you can imagine the family of 10 were like, what are we going to do with that? And the family of 2 were, so that all those details were still there to untangle. But yeah, there was enough that people survived.
Let me pull up this video, which is really caught my attention when I saw it, when you posted it from there, which is the contrast between the property that you had built using plasma tools, using GANS and nano-coated copper and sustainable building methods, and the contrast with the rest of the island. Should we watch that quick?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to give you an idea of where the edges are to what we might be looking at for some kind of a protective dome for that the plasma has given us. So what I'm doing here is I've started in front of the house and I'm walking down the track, and you can see there's the flowers, everything's all right, a little bit tangly, but it's all right. Beautiful. Flowers, we got flowers, we got flowers. And there's the bottom of the track. And that's the kind of state of things. So you can see there is a difference. Is it the plasma? We just don't know, but I suspect yes. Sure, it's a different vibration. And I'll go and stand right in the center in front of the house. Say hi. The way it looks right in front of the house. There's our beautiful mountains that were once green and then now brown. Right, here's the little shed that's intact, and kind of over the top there is my little house shack that got blown down. Over there is the other shack that got blown down. So we feel that there was a ring of, let's call it a ring of oasis around the house of a couple of 100 feet, and then there was an edge to that ring where things started to get a bit more vulnerable. We don't know if that's the case or not, but have a look for yourself. It's certainly a nicer vibe up here than it is down at the bottom of the track. So here's the little bed that I was telling Carolina about. We've got pineapple, chardon bene, that's mulberry, that's moringa, what's that, Chinese cabbage, that's aubergine, spinach, one is. I've got basilic looking good, pineapple on the way, and somewhere in there look, you can see there's a jar of plasma. Perhaps that helped that bed to stay intact through the hurricane. We don't know for sure, but maybe.
And completely surviving the hurricane. I mean, did you see any place else that was like your place that had survived at that level?
We were driving around a little bit, and we had our eyes out to try and see if if what had happened up there was unique. And there were 1 or 2 or 3 places around as we drove around where we could see there were flowers there still and what have you. But I have to say, no, it was pretty unique. And when people were coming up and saying hi and visiting and checking out that the place was all right, they would walk up the track and say, "But nothing happened there, man." Like nothing happened there. And after a while, it became a little bit embarrassing. Where you'd meet people and they would give you their horror story about how they, oh man, there were a lot. Everybody had a story. Yes. And they'd be like, "And how were you guys?" And my mum was like, "Well, we just didn't feel anything." So I think what we should explain here is perhaps how we'd implemented, how that's come about. If what's happened there is related to the plasma, and those of us who are studying go ahead.
Let's go ahead and pull the slides back up and you can kind of talk through those.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think those will give a visual of some of what you're going to talk about here. And really, we had something similar happen in Florida where right over the people I knew who were holding the highest field, there was nothing even happened. And it's just, we're caught in this advancing materialistic civilization where people are running around, living in little boxes that somebody else built, and we've gotten so disconnected from touching the places that we live and becoming integrated with the places that we live and using these plasma tools to help heighten the energy. So we're going to really look at how some of that can happen, and you can tell us about details. Let me go back to screen sharing here and go back to the...
So those of us who've been studying the plasma are aware that the plasma creates what we call magnetical and gravitational fields, which is basically energy pushing and pulling or sending and receiving. And it can create what I see as a kind of a vortex energy, which I visualize spirals going up to a certain height, which can, let's say, deflect the weather. And, the folks at the Keshe Foundation, Mr. Keshe and everybody there were very interested and wanted a bit more detail on what perhaps the area that it covered and so on. And, and I had to, because I stayed there for a month, I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and it very much was, as you just mentioned, it correlates to being involved in the process on a human level, regardless of the plasma, having built the place, having, as I explained to them, you know, blood, sweat and tears is a phrase we use, but basically that means that your amino acids are in the earth. That means your DNA is in the earth. That means that your DNA is in that house. And that is the connection to you.
Yes.
And at that point in time, regardless of plasma, the plasma kind of, once you start implementing plasma, the plasma can strengthen that connection.
Yes.
And that's what I believe happened here is we've got a very strong DNA connection in the earth and in the home. And then we've implemented plasma all over the place. And we should probably explain to folks.
Yeah, let's look, we'll go here to we can go back to those few slides. And that's what we talk about in these plasma teachings is our DNA, is our connection, is our heart connection, our soul connection, and the amino acids are part of what hold us in physical form in this world. And
yeah, exactly. And others.
Go ahead. When you, like you said, you put your blood, sweat, and tears into the earth and you connect with it so much that you're literally, you know, engaged with it at a interactive level.
And it's a modern day thing that we, perhaps by design, have a disconnect with that way of living these days, depending on where you are on the planet. You know, it tends to be that the less affluent areas have that connection. Because you have to have that connection. You have to go and build your house yourself. You have to grow your crops because maybe you can't afford to go down and buy them in the supermarket, you know.
Right.
So it's a modern day thing that we've disconnected from that process. And I think it's important if people want to know how to replicate this, what we're calling Plasma Oasis, which at the moment is just data. We need to see if more people are having that same experience before it becomes anything that is solid enough to actually promote as such. Then that's key. It is being involved in the process. Be involved in your garden. Touch your plants, touch your flowers, touch the vegetables. Instantly touching a living creature will connect. There is a DNA connection the moment you touch something.
And this house of yours there is also an earth house, correct? We're seeing the walls of the earth house.
Yeah, I actually built it with a very energetic substance by design. It's pumice, which is a small, very lightweight rock, which originates inside the volcano. And learning about plasma, we understand that when you're dealing with those high temperatures, which it inevitably is down there in the volcano, and it's one of the reasons I like living in Dominica. It's 9 active volcanoes, which just makes it an energy hotspot. It's like singing with energy. So
were you able to get the pumice from there?
Yeah, it's a waste material. So literally what happens is it rolls down the rivers, and the companies that are dredging out the rivers take out the sand to use as construction material, and then the pumice is just a waste material. So there's mountains of this stuff, and it's very lightweight. So it's got air pockets inside there, which give a thermic property. So your house is beautifully insulated. So when it's red hot outside, you're nice and cool on the inside, and vice versa. And so already that home is like, it has a certain energetic property to it because of what we built. But quite literally, my mom's painted the walls. We've applied plasma into the paint, you know.
Nice.
And so our application of the plasma there, what I used to do when I was helping out in the garden and what have you, I would just get a big, I don't know what size, but a big backpack sprayer. We would put the liquid plasma, that's the, once we've created the plasma, we basically dilute that plasma with clean water. The plasma will always drop to the bottom, and then we can separate the liquid we've just diluted it with. And that now has the information of the plasma imprinted into it. So that's what we call liquid plasma. So we use that liquid plasma literally to spray everything, spray the trees, spray the crops and everything. And you're then transferring that information of the plasma through to the plants, and that's very beneficial for them.
Right.
And
And I've seen that as I traveled and taught 90 days of workshops last year around the United States, and then went to South Africa. Like an apple tree that hadn't borne fruit in 8 years, sprayed with plasma water a few times in the summer, was so loaded with apples they had to put 2x4s under the branches.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll see some amazing stuff.
And in these pictures, we can also literally see the energy field around the plants. And this isn't even special photography, but if I always notice that these images of highly plasmified areas tend to draw extra light into the picture.
Yeah, exactly. And when you start working with the plasma, well, it's my experience, let me say, that when I've started working with the plasma, you will start to see anomalies. You'll start to see things that perhaps you haven't seen any other time in your life. And I've seen
yes.
vegetables glowing, and I've seen,
yes.
I've got a bunch of stuff that were,
yes.
they'll flip people out if they see it.
Yes. I think we're going to put together a video demonstrating all these fields too. So these are literally flowers and plants that are existing in your yard after the hurricane.
Yeah, and they've withstood over 200-mile-an-hour winds for, I don't know if it was like 5 or 6 hours. So you'll see other places around that have had huge trees rooted out. I mean, like if you go to, they have a beautiful botanical gardens there in Dominica, and they've got some enormous trees, and they're beautiful, they're ancient, and they've just been like roots and all uprooted and pulled out of the ground. So you can imagine something the kind of forces you're dealing with are monstrous.
We believe, I think people like you and I who have been working with these tools have a feeling that we're setting up spiral fields. We're almost re-implementing the natural fields of the earth to be self-protective, to harmonize when disruptive energies come through. We're setting up harmonizing fields that can just neutralize or dance with those disruptive energies.
Right, and you've used the right word there, because when you go back in time and look at the way that the indigenous folks used to deal with these natural issues, they would whip up out of their own connection to spirit enough energy, and all they're doing is creating the same stuff we're doing with the plasma. You're whipping up spiral fields that you can actually, let's say, deflect or even guide weather. What is a rain dance? We've spoken about this. What is a rain dance? Spinning around and getting in a highly meditative state where the plasma is just a way that we can, it's like a tool that if those of us that would have no idea how to do a rain dance, and I have to say, I don't know how, I know what I would do if I tried to do a rain dance, but the plasma is now a tool for us of which we can access those same energies. And so, a comparison should be made between, we're working in the modern day, and plasma seems like this very modern concept, but actually you're just working with energetics that have always been present. And in truth, those of us who've been studying plasma have come to understand that we ourselves as humans are a living pot of plasma, and have all that same potential that the plasma can do to take away. What is somebody who has healing capabilities? They've tapped into those energies, and they're able to guide them and direct them. And again, going back to that kind of disconnect, we're not in touch with, not so many of us are in touch with that stuff anymore. There are a lot who are. So
I know that there's a little bit difference between Dominica and the Republic of Dominica. Do you want to just tell us that really quick so we know where you were?
Yeah, sure. Dominica's kind of central in the island chain, the Caribbean islands. The Republic of Dominica, which always gets mixed up with, is attached to Haiti. They're one island. And the Commonwealth of Dominica, which is where I was, is a tiny, tiny little dot of an island, which is
nice.
Central in the island chain.
So tell me a little bit about this beautiful lady.
Okay, well, so when I went to do the workshop down there in the village, there were a bunch of people hanging around because there were a few displaced families that were actually living in this same spot too, completely lost their home and what have you. So this is one family who were in the area, and this girl had given birth in the middle of the hurricane. So their situation was pretty rough. Like in the middle of the hurricane, they weren't sure if she'd started her contractions. They weren't sure if the roof was going to blow because they all live in little shacks. And so they had to run down to a Jeep that was outside, and her husband and father of husband caught the baby in the middle of the hurricane as the vehicle was shifting, being pushed along by the hurricane. So this little love was born right in the eye of the storm. So what I was doing there was showing these guys how they can use the plasma, the liquid plasma, to boost the immune system and put them all in a good state of health while there's a lot of disease and sickness floating around.
Beautiful.
The whole family was spraying up when we were there.
Nice, beautiful people. They're doing it more. So I know clean water in a situation like this can be a challenge. What was your experience with that? And
yeah, well, there I am doing my laundry in the river. So you can imagine we've got no light, we've got no running water, so everything's
right
back to the basics. And the water scenario was pretty much everyone's gone back to catching rainwater, and the people who are used to having plumbed water are feeling it. Once again, my mom's not feeling it at all because that's the lifestyle she's living, where we catch the water.
Right.
I implemented a nice little plasma system while I was there, actually, in water tanks, just by dropping some different plasmas into the water system and using the overflow and so on. So
nice. So did you drop the plasma water directly into the container, or were you putting it bottled into the water system?
They were bottled up and dropped in.
Perfect. And that's what we like to remind people. In order to improve your water situation, you can make your GANS, put it into like a plastic bottle, even an empty Coke bottle or something that's clean, seal it up and put it in your water tank.
Yeah, and it will help to structure that water and bring it back to its... I mean, the water's okay that comes out of the sky there anyway. We're not in the city environment.
Correct.
I wouldn't really want to drink that city water straight from the sky. But if you've got those plasma tools, you're able to structure the water and bring it back. My mum's reported back to me already that the water's lovely, and the animals are enjoying it, you know.
Nice. We'll just zip through these pictures again really quickly, kind of looking at the vibrancy of the plants and anything that you want to mention to us. I know we were talking about the pumice, and we're going to go and look at how you were supporting people in. So this is the view from your place and looking at the mountains that have been.
Yeah, those are a couple of active volcanoes that are across the way, and they're beautiful. You just get lost staring at those two because they're so beautiful. And there's a kind of one point to make was if you come back to the images of the flowers, you can see that there's a real vibrancy to them, and that's something that I noticed. And I don't know if that was unique to our garden or if that was happening around the island, but the level of energy that comes through with a hurricane, it's destructive energy, but in reality, you know, that there are beneficial energies within that destructive energy. And
it's only destructive because it's disruptive and it's disrupted. But once we put out harmonization, it's almost like we've got a more powerful energy field to tap into. That we're helping instruct it to harmonize with our field, with the plasma.
And you could see it. You can see it in the plants. They were zinging energy. And
it's amazing.
Something that crossed my mind afterwards talking to people was that this strange phenomenon you have in a hurricane, which is the eye of the storm, which is where you're having this devastating force pass over you, and then comes this quiet of 20 minutes where you can actually step outside and, you know, it's absolutely still. And to me, that was interesting on an energetic, looking at it through the energetics of the whole thing. Is I liken to that to some of the work that they're doing with the energy devices and creating that 0 point in the energy devices, where the good stuff is, right? That's where there's, so in the 0 point is where we are able to imprint energy. And that, I could see that is what happens in the eye of that storm, is you get 0 point, which you're able to go out and then you've got to get back in double quick, because boom, there comes the edge again. And then
just to think that this rose is there after this storm. I mean, how perfect and beautiful.
It's very odd, I have to say. It's a really odd phenomenon. It's one of the strangest things I've ever seen, to see these monstrous trees that have been uprooted and then delicate. I mean, look at that. I mean, it's possible that some of these came in after the hurricane too, but that's the vibrancy as well that springs up after the hurricane.
And I've seen other pictures you've taken, and myself as well, showing this light. This is after a friend of ours passed on, and I keep this windsock near where I live, and this whole field of light came in around it. So we can capture these things even in a regular camera. Like Kirlian photography, of course, does more, but it's amazing what you can see when you're tuned into looking for it.
I've got a lovely video. We won't play it here now, but I captured it in a bed of vegetables that I was growing.
Yes.
I walked past it one day and I could visibly see the auric field of all these plants. So I ran for my camera, rubbing thinking is this my eyes or what?
Yes. We'll put that in. We're going to do a video on showing the fields, and we'll add that into it.
And these are some of the amazing things that you can see once you start working with plasma.
Right. And so you had the animals and the birds showing up, and you were doing your best to feed them. And
yeah, right. The plasmas, the parrots are very shy creatures, and normally you don't get to see them so easily. As you can see, they're well camouflaged, but they're totally exposed now because they're such colourful creatures. They're green, red, yellow. So now all those trees have been stripped. You see them and they're around. And so every day in my mum's garden there, they were flying around.
Oh, Tom.
So,
hold on a second. Let me just...
Have we...
Oh, no, I'm still recording. I just wanted to make sure. One of those moments.
Sure.
Back to full screen. Go ahead. Carry on.
Yeah, so we had the parrots flying around in the garden and coming really close. And they're searching for food because they're in that problem now where the ecosystem has shifted and changed, and suddenly what was normal ain't normal anymore. So I was taking the grapefruits off the ground and spiking them back onto the trees.
That's so cool. Bless us all. And I think one of the things you and I feel, and one of the reasons we're doing these videos, one of the reasons we share what we do, one of the reasons we pass it on to others is because we'd like to see more people making GANs, making these tools involving plasma energy in their world, so we can be creating these little oases where nature can survive, where we can survive, and not only survive, but thrive.
Yeah. I get a lot of comments like, dude, you're not, prove it to us. And I'm not trying to prove anything. I don't know about you, Carrie.
Right.
I'm living it.
Yes, we're just living it.
Sharing my experience with the world. And it frustrates people that we're not like doing always double blind testing and what have you. I don't care for it. It doesn't interest me one jot. What interests me is having the direct effect on the environment and then being able to share that with folks, and hopefully, and for me, my joy is inspiring other people. And if we can, and that's kind of why I make these little videos of the simplicity of putting things down. And it's not the perfect way to create plasma.
And what you just said of people saying, prove it. And the truth is, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in doing it. When you do it, your life changes. And that is the bottom line. Becoming involved, becoming engaged. I love this. I asked you what you were thinking during the hurricane because you weren't on Dominica, or Dominica. Is that how you say it? And your mom was. And you said, what did you tell me? I thought it was really neat.
We have an expression in our family between my mother, my brother, and my brothers and I. We when one of us might find ourselves in a sticky situation of any way, shape, or form, be it ill or whatever it be. The expression is "put me in a pink bubble." And we work with that, and that's the visualization. And I think this is very relevant. I think part of the process is visualizing remotely that the person on the other side or the area or whatever it be are safe, and the visualization is the pink bubble, and that you can correlate to that kind of Plasma Oasis idea of creating a domed effect. And it might not be pink, but you are helping to reinforce the intent and the energy at that moment that can,
yes,
remotely you can affect that area.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes. And so our intent, we live in this world where the news is constantly creating fear. We were talking about this the other day, how terrible the hurricane is. Be afraid, run, run, run. And instead, if we can hold our space and we can be holding the field of love, we can envisioning goodness, we are literally going to change that field.
Yeah, it's important not to buy into that fear wave, because we get to watch it. When I was in the Caribbean, we would receive the heavy weather, and the hurricanes come over. The weather comes over from Africa, travels across the Atlantic, and the first ones to receive it are the chain of islands that are the Caribbean. We receive it, we get the bad out, and then I'm able to watch the news reporting coming back to the States, and it just whips up the fear. And in that whipping up of the fear, that can very much have an amplification type of effect on that weather, because you've got so many people, and the news is saying, brace yourself, this is coming, this is off the scale category. And no, let's not buy into that. Let's start getting into that pink bubble scenario where you're working on the positive energies rather than that fear wave, because you and I both know that achieves nothing. Well, energy is matched, isn't it? So
it is matched.
Go out there with fear is what you're going to receive. So
that's right. Fear and destruction. And go out there with love and harmonization, and you will see that manifest in your world.
Exactly.
Oops. One more little last picture of those beautiful gardens that are more beautiful than a lot of people even see without a hurricane. But
there's a lot of love gone into that garden. That fir tree you can see there on the center, right? I didn't see another one of those on the island that had a single branch on them. That was the only one that I saw that was fully intact all the way up to the top. It had every branch on it. So.
And somebody might just say, well, you happen to be in the eye of the hurricane, so that's why you didn't get hit. But what we might say is, perhaps you drew that in by the field that you were creating. You drew in a field of harmonization, of 0 point, of where things emerge from and what surrounded that. You and I even had a discussion that I know that there were certain, I think the Corporation of the United States was foreclosed on in Puerto Rico 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. And so you had mentioned some people with maybe shady businesses had said, the destruction came along and now there's no records. And so perhaps some of these things are being...
and everything is business, and it's something I don't know too much about, but I'm aware that, and I had it brought to my attention when I was out there, that there is such a thing as catastrophe bonds, cat bonds.
Yes.
So there's money being made on disaster, and I don't focus on a lot of people are feeling that our weather is manipulated, and I'm with you. But what I can see is that there once let's just put it like this: if somebody has the ability to guide weather, and on the other side you have the ability to gamble on that where is going to get hit, then you start to get a picture in your head of the fat cats are making money off the back of disaster, and people are dying on the other end of this. So to me, this is just.
And the truth is, we are creating this reality. We are souls that are here in plasmatic form. We are engaging with the fields of plasma, and we can call in. I think we've lived in these choices outside of love for thousands of years as a human race. And it is time for us to center in love, to be resonating harmony with the field, and to be calling in a new kind of life on.
Yeah, let's just shoot away that kind of energy.
Exactly.
And for me, I don't focus on resistance anymore. I used to be, I was a rebel when I was a kid, and I don't do that anymore because I understand now that energy is matched. So these days I focus on solutions.
Yes.
It's a positive way to counter those, what might be negative energies that are around and nefarious ways of thinking that are out there. Let's just shoot them away with solutions. And I feel that's what we're doing. We're creating those energies now. But those energies are finding it a lot more difficult to exist these days as consciousness is rising.
Yes, absolutely. Everywhere.
So this image here is me and my mate Elf, who I've known for a long time. He's a good friend of mine. So I went down to the village and did a workshop with these guys, was able to show them. Elf's already familiar with the plasma, but I touched on it with them before I left a couple of years ago. And so they were just chomping at the bit for me to show them more. So I went down and did a workshop with them. And, I showed them how initially, as I said, to work with the ocean water.
Right.
And to create fertilizers. And then we moved a little bit more into the slightly more technical way of producing plasma, but I still showed them in the simplest form, the simplest way of nano coating. And, people get lost in this information, but in truth, you're just putting layers of carbon on something and you're joining it to another element and whack it in some salt water. The salt is these guys loved this info because I was able to tell them, as I've had it explained to me, imagine that scenario where on the shores of Africa, you've got a copper mine.
Right.
The ocean is lapping up against it. And now imagine lightning striking that copper and changing the condition. And now imagine whatever the other element be that is creating that. And
the amino acids and the
boom, you've got
life.
You've got life, the conditions for life. And
I tell that story a lot.
These guys love that because these are Rastafarians who are in touch with they're Pan-Africans, they're in touch with their roots and they just get it. I didn't have to push at all to get that information across.
So what did you use for caustic with the seawater with them? Did you use ash or?
No, I was lucky enough. Before I left Dominica a couple of years ago, we'd bought a stock of the sodium hydroxide, and so I had like a 10-kilogram bag, which is just great because going back there, didn't have that. I'd have gone into, and I touched on it with them that using the ashes and boiling the ashes of a hard fire, and I'm really. This is one of the things that really interests me in plasma tech is how it can go back to
the simplest
and the very earthy. These guys, I explained to them, you're already working with nanotech because you're working with the ashes already. And they already understand that, for them as farmers, they say, well, it creates a kind of heat in the earth and the plants enjoy that warmth where it's cold. You're at a high altitude. It can get chilly up there, even though it's in the Caribbean. And they just say, well, it warms up the crops. And I was able to explain to them what's happening energetically. And I think we'll link in a video at the end of this where I'm explaining the process a little bit through the matter state.
Yes, definitely. You really did some nice, you did some nice demonstrations. Go ahead.
Yeah, the nano state being basically the ashes we've moved it into the nano state, and that's now a stronger field energy, and then we're able to move it into the plant. These guys got it, man. So easy to explain it to them. Yeah. And there's the good stuff. I did another workshop in another village, and here we were well equipped.
Yes.
And we had the beautiful Himalayan pink salt, and we had plates of zinc and plates of copper, and it was just like, and the beauty of it was the end result was the same as going and collecting a old blown away piece of chicken wire and whatever bits of what seemed to be trash. The end result's the same. You can go and spend $100 on having all the right materials. That's wonderful if you're able to do that. But plasma tech is available for everybody and anybody. Because be you wealthy or be you poor, you can still go and do it. That's what I like about this. It's a leveler, Yes, very nice. Right, there we go. We're looking at what we're looking at there. I've put together a few little information sheets because as folks contact me and want to know what plasma is, I'm trying to show them what it is, how it can be applied, and inevitably they want to know, because it's not an energy we can see with our eyes.
Yes.
When we're looking at plasma fields, they're not a physical thing, but we're able to get a visual. So what you're looking at here is what's known as a pain pen or a health pen, which is just a nano-coated copper coil, a couple of copper coils. And we change the conductivity of that copper by layering it up with carbon. So if you then freeze those materials that you create, you will most of the time get a visual. So what you're looking at there is a container of water that went into the freezer with this I think I set up a piece of wire or something to elevate it over the water.
Yes, that's what I usually do too.
And you're able to get a visual of the plasma fields. And each one of those little lines that you can see there are, as far as I'm concerned, you're seeing the send and receive of the information that the nanomaterials are sending out. You can do that with nanomaterials. You can do that with plasma. And I think we've got a few other examples.
Yes, we do. Let's look at those. And yeah, that's been one of my favorite ways of seeing how this plasma works, is just seeing the field demonstrated in the ice. And when you're looking for proof, this is a really nice proof method to show us that these tools basically gather the plasma energy, or concentrate it, focus it, and direct it. And so we can direct that into our lives and into our worlds. And when you begin to see this, it's amazing.
Yeah, what you're seeing is the plasma, actually, because plasma is a, as I perceive it, it's a conscious creation that we come up with, and it's a giver of energy. So the plasma will constantly, wherever you put it and whatever you match it with, it will try and feed the weaker energy. So in this case, you've got your water in there, and it's feeding the water with its energy.
Yes.
So what you're getting a visual of there is that plasma sending out what it is realizing that water might want. And that's what happens when we're using the health patches, the pain patches, and all these things that we can relieve pain. Yeah, there's a nice one. So what you're looking at there is I think you can hold up your necklace in the little window there, but you have a ring underneath there, right? That has you've got
three kinds of GANs in it.
That's got 3 rings. Are you able to see me in the side image?
We can't see each other, but I think the people watching can see us.
Great. So we've got 3 rings in this piece of jewelry there, and there are 3 different types of plasma. So what I've done there to get a visual on how maybe that energy looks is I've just dropped this little bit of jewelry into the freezer, and I've popped a container on top of it.
That is incredible.
The energy moves through be it plastic, whatever the container is, and is able to affect the water. So what you're looking at there is the combination of those 3 plasmas that are in this piece of jewelry coming out into the water. And like I said, it's giving the energy to the water, let's say.
Yes.
So it's great. If you now take that water and go and let it defrost and feed it to your plants, they're going to love you for that.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a beautiful one. Look at that.
That is incredible.
That was what I did. I made a little experiment to try and I dropped drops of actual plasma into a resin, which then inevitably the resin sets and goes hard. So I'm left with the disc, a hard disc that's got little drops of plasma in it. And I said, okay, let me check the field. Let me see how that looks when I pop that into the water. So with this one, I actually popped the disc into the container, filled it up with water, and you can see there's this toroid field. Generally, the energy moves in that toroidal way, and you can see there how it arcs in, and then on the other side, it will arc back out.
Right.
There's quite a lot left out of the picture there that if we had a huge container, we would see a lot more information.
Yes, I see the same thing when I do this.
But what you're able to see is, look at that beautiful way that plasma is streaming up there. This is energy. What's there is energy moving out of the disc that I created, and
absolutely.
How beautiful, huh?
Yeah.
And quite often you'll get this bubble. That globe-looking thing there is that there'll be the last part of the container to freeze.
Yes.
And quite often the energy is so high that it's very difficult for that water to freeze. And what you're looking at there is you can put normally water will freeze in 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, depending on your freezer and the temperature and what have you. But when you start playing with this stuff, you'll see that you can have your things in the water for 48 hours and they won't freeze. And the reason being, there's so much energy zinging out.
That's right. Now, is that additional? Look at the colors in the light that's shining down from up above, too.
Mm-hmm.
The rainbow colors there. And I just call that plasma being caught in the light, the plasmatic field.
Yeah.
This is something we made here, and a lovely, just very simple health pen, just with twisted wires. And you can see the kind of an apple-shaped toroid field with the ball in the center of it, and then the bigger field around it.
You can see that sphere, and that will have been the last part to freeze up eventually over time. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah. That was the top of that particular pen, made similar to a labyrinth center.
Yeah, I work with that shape quite a lot.
Yes. Do you have yours you can hold up there?
Yeah, sure.
I think they can see you, even though I can't.
Let me see if that looks right.
I know Mark, who made this one, was inspired by yours.
What this one's actually got is one piece of wire, and in the center there, I put a small bottle which has plasma inside the bottle. And you've got I don't know if you can even see, but there's a central pin running down through the center. But basically what you're looking at there is a triskelion.
Nice.
And that shape in itself is a very high energetic shape. But basically you've got what appear to be 3 spirals. That one usually coming in the center, and then off it come 2 other spirals. So I love playing with shapes and geometry.
Yes.
And that's the fun part of working with plasma. You can really go to town on. You can apply it with all your previous passions, you know?
Yeah. And I will say, everyone doesn't have to be an artist at it. Mine are pretty simple and basic, and I still end up with amazing fields.
And what you're looking at there, so everything in our universe just about is plasma. And so when you're dealing with energetics, it doesn't just need to be plasma and nanomaterials that you're using to capture this energy. So what you're looking at there is a powdered crystal, a quartz crystal, which I just dropped the powder into the bottom of the container, froze it. So as you can see there, we're not working in what we know as plasma or nanomaterials, but you're getting that visual of the energy that the crystal contains. And how beautiful is that? Huh? It's just
looks like fireworks going off.
Yeah, and to me that's what's happening. You're getting explosive plasmatic energy going on. You don't see it. This one is a small piece of meteorite. So this one's galactic energy, and that's the feeling I got as soon as I saw that. I was like, wow, this looks like this is galactic imagery you're seeing here, isn't it? It's beautiful.
And these are a couple more that we made here, so you can just see the fields. And I think there's a bigger field under this that isn't even room for in the bowl. But
exactly. We all need to get bigger freezers.
Yes.
Really.
Buckets. That's a triple or quadruple pain pen, health pen.
And it's a really nice way for people, if they're just starting to work out how to do this stuff. It's a really lovely way for it to be real. You can take that and show your family and say, wow, look at that. That's
why when we take this tool and put it against a sore knee or ankle, it's actually calling in plasma energy for the body to begin harmonizing itself in that area. And that is why we do these things. It's why we're playing with these tools, because they are amplifying this life force energy for us.
Yeah, I use the metaphor of or the analogy of electrical circuits. I see the human system as we have our nervous system that is all around our body, And our brain is sending and receiving signals all the time, us being little plasma devices, which we are. And anytime that you get an area of pain, so let's say if I chop myself on my wrist, that message is, I've got my little sender receivers are coming from my brain, will reach that point, and they can't travel any further, and they'll come back up and say, emergency, 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 go and check it out. And if you use the plasma there at that point, I see it as it kind of reconnects the circuit. And now that, and it's not necessarily a good thing taking away pain, because we need that signal to tell us, hey, have a look at that, you know. But basically, this is it reconnects that circuit, and now the emergency button is switched off again, and your pain will reduce. And that's one of the beautiful ways of working. I mean, I had a lovely example the other day of a family member, a distant family member I haven't met, but she was an elderly lady, and she took a fall, and by all accounts, she fell on her face, and her body, and she was in a real bad state. And I'd given some plasma tools to a cousin who was able to tell her, hey, take it, go put it on, apply it, put patches, put the cream, we make creams and stuff like that. So she just like totally had no clue what it was, but was desperate. And that's the point in time when you will physically feel what this plasma stuff can do.
Yes, absolutely.
She just came back saying, what is this? You gave me some water, and it took away all my pain, and I didn't bruise, and the pain didn't come back. And she was like, I've still got to get the testimonial off her yet, really, as to what really happened.
That is awesome.
I got that report, you know, and it's lovely when you can touch people like that at zero cost. Beautiful. Beautiful.
So you drew this, that's an awesome story. Awesome, awesome. And at the end, we're going to just tell a little bit about some of the tools that you're making, and you have back ordered all over the world. People are wanting to get from you because really those of us who are out doing this in the field are the ones that have been making it, playing with it, and have it to share. And we'd like to encourage everyone to do it themselves as well.
Yeah, I gladly teach this stuff, as well as I said, what I see is most people don't want to know how to do it for themselves. They find it too technical.
Right.
But I'm always there to try and demystify that stuff for people. And if you don't want to learn it, there's a lot of people out there that would have more money than time. Great. I'll sell it for you too. No problem.
Yes. Yes. So tell us about this lovely little map you made of your home area there.
Sure. So the guys at the Keshe Foundation had seen some of the pictures I was sending back from my little mission in Dominica, and they instantly recognized that as well. This is the plasma that's helped you to create this little oasis. So they wanted a bit more information from me. So I basically paced out where there is no circular line like you're seeing there, but in the same time, I paced it out to where the edges seem to be. Right, on one side you've got like beautiful glowing flowers, and on the other side you've got like devastation. So
you know what I'm seeing as I look at this picture, I could see like a conch shell that is the perfect Fibonacci sequence, sacred geometry spiral. And if you just laid the end there on the point and laid the conch shell on it, or a snail shell, I mean, basically you've got that spiral, Fibonacci spiral field happening.
Yeah. All the clues are there for us in nature. Already. Just open your eyes and look at the flowers, look at the leaves, look at the shells, look at the way that energy moves on our planet already. And all the clues are there for us. You know, these aren't things that are always, energy is not the thing that we can always see visibly, but just watch nature and you're absolutely right. I mean,
I envision, as you do, I'm sure, new neighborhoods and communities being built this way, you know, harmonized and in touch with planet Earth. And doesn't mean people can't be modern, but they can also be in harmony as well.
Exactly. Well, we've got the know-how and the engineering know-how how to implement this stuff right across the board now, from you know, how you build your home, construction, how you farm, and you can integrate it with all the existing ways. You know, once you mix up permaculture and all that stuff, that's the way we were keeping the garden there, was like more or less a permaculture garden. Then it intersects beautifully with all these pre-existing things. And so for me, this is the Plasma Oasis. If you can create, I share with people the ultimate structure is a dome.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to live in a safe structure, the dome is brilliant because it can deal with all those different forces, and there's no resistance. The wind always looks for an edge to catch that it can rip off. And if people start living like that it's like going back in time. We used to live like that.
Right.
Only now we go up in square concrete boxes. To me, this is where we are now is backwards. Where we were is totally correct.
Yes, and we have the ability, the know-how to actually go forward in new ways, in ways that are as advanced as we are, but are harmonious with the earth and with nature.
And being conscious.
Being conscious. So these are some of the people that you came down and began working with. I see some of earth construction over there.
Exactly. They just jumped right to it after their place got more or less blown away, and they were left with this just chaotic.
And so you came down to work with them and to do a little workshop on how to build a different kind of house, right?
Yeah, I mean, my friend Elf there's worked with me before on doing the earth bag stuff. Yeah, right, there you go, look.
Nice.
So we were teaching these guys, and like I said, these are rootsy guys. These are guys that are in touch with earth. So building a home out of earth to them is like, they can't wait to do it. So after the hurricane, these guys had already jumped to not this structure here, but the previous image was basically they had a bunch of earth that had come down the map. Boom, they were bagging it up and ready to go already, rebuilding the foundation.
Nice.
For the home. And so
that's what they're doing up here. They're rebuilding the foundation with the earth bags.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
When I arrived, they were already doing it. I didn't need to go in there and start showing them anything.
And I've actually done this kind of construction before as well. Where are they getting the bags that they're filling up with earth?
In a very long-winded way, which if we could get a sponsor would have been awesome. But the rest of the world is quite slow to pick up on this. So we were collecting bags from bakeries, which is just as legitimate as buying them. We're working with what we've got. And it's a bit tedious because you've got to try and cut a deal with the bakeries. Inevitably, you do end up buying them off them. But, I think we were paying 50 cents per bag or something, which is so... I just wish we lived in a world where those with the funds would sponsor this kind of stuff, because you've got people there that are doing it with nothing, and we're doing it. We're still doing it. We don't need. But if the people with the money started to open up their resources and put it into good, conscious projects, wow, what a world we would live in.
We will. We are. We're heading that direction. We're going to repurpose everything
slowly. Yeah, and that's basically what
unless it happens quickly, because all of us shift in our minds and hearts so fast.
Yeah, and I do see it. I do see the bell curve. I see it ramping now, and I do see that it's speeding up. And like, for example, now in Dominica, people are chomping at the bit to know about this stuff, because guess what? When your roof's blown off and you're left looking at a leaking, useless home, this stuff stops looking like fairy tale, funny little, and it starts looking very, very interesting that you're in a secure place, because we have got 60. I had friends that died in that particular hurricane.
Yes.
We had 60 people die, and now before I left Dominica, I was doing my very best to try and get a project going where we would show each village how to build this safe structure where they don't have to live in it, but come a hurricane, just run to it.
Right.
Family,
Nice.
go and get in that safe space, and guess what? You're safe. You're safe from flood. Why do you think the army uses this technique when they're bunkering up for war? Why do we use this stuff when there's a flood? This stuff is resistant, and there are many ways. It's not. I'm not saying this is the be all end all. There are many cool ways of building a home in these times.
I remember when I told you when I was in an earth building course many years ago, there were pictures of a house in New Zealand that had sat on a fault line for about 175 years, but it wasn't built out of earth. And when the earth would shift, the house shifted. It didn't fall down. It didn't get damaged ever.
I was lucky enough to be, when we were constructing the home in the mountains, I know we're probably running out of time here and we can waffle for hours, so I'll try and be snappy.
Yeah.
When I was constructing a home up in the mountain using this technique, I was lucky. We had a big earthquake there that was, it brought down a lot of buildings. Some of the old churches came down and what have you, but I was lucky enough to be standing up above it and watch it as the earthquake happened. And there's nothing there. There's no post and beam. There's no concrete. There's no nothing. You've just got bags stacked up in the same way you would build a wall. So you don't have straight joints. You have them like that, and then one on top. But you've just got barbed wire running in between that's acting as the mortar in between. So that there's no lateral shift.
Right.
And you've got the mass of the building, the weight that's coming down on it is doing the
holding it in place.
Holding it in place. So I watched this building. We built the whole structure, and it wasn't plastered or anything. So and it just flexed like the trees.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
How nice.
Yeah.
So these guys are starting the foundation for a circular shelter type of building, and then.
Yep. These guys are doing it real basics. You can go quite technical on this stuff, and there are different types of foundations you can put down. A French drain foundation, so that the water runs through it correctly, and
Right.
There are many ways. Again, you can intersect it with regular building and stuff. So these guys are doing the absolute basics here. They're just digging a small trench and off you go with the earth that they've got. And that was kind of what we were doing here. We were working at a high elevation. So there was nothing there. There was no light. There was no, you're a 15-minute hike right straight up the mountain. And the point of this was to try and show that if we can do this here with nothing other than bags, we had to hike up the mountain with whatever we were taking every day.
Right.
And we just used the earth that was under our feet. And with that, you're building a safe space.
And this was just on somebody's land up there?
Yeah, these guys farm that land up there. So
Nice.
they wanted a place where, and as well in Dominica, they have what's called the Waitukubuli Trail, which was the original indigenous name for the island of Waitukubuli. And so you've got hikers that take this track around the island, and
Nice.
their land happened to be en route of the Waitukubuli Trail. So for them, it was like, this is a spot where we can have the hikers come through, and one day we can, help have a place for them to stay, or make them a bush tea, or whatever the purpose is.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this is stacking the bags.
Yep. You just stack them up, barbed wire in between, and then stucco plaster it afterwards. And you can build a square house that you wouldn't even know you're looking at this strange technique. We can make structures that just look like a standard home if you want. For me personally, I understand the geometry of the circle.
Right.
And so I know the strength that's contained within that, and and energetically too. If you build like this, it's the same with the plasma. The animals will come around, and where you see the animals relaxing and chilling out, that's where you know the good vibe is. And
absolutely.
Build like this, and you'll just see the dogs and the cats like lolling out over this stuff.
Nice. I would even say in this picture we're seeing plasmatic energy.
The glow.
The glow.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. Putting the door frame in.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Nice view too, huh?
Yeah. Gorgeous. Okay. And at the end, we're going to put some videos. You did some really great just picking up of trash and random things, and teaching how to nano coat really simply over the fire with your pieces of copper.
Yeah.
And we'll put those how-to videos at the end of this so that everybody.
And we're trying to the purpose of this is, like I said before, it's not the perfect way to create plasma, but it's getting your head around the fundamentals of what you're doing. And this is I would advise anyone who wants to start looking at plasma, start at this point, and that is working with fire. And, we're showing the absolute basics of how to do this stuff. And like I said, the end product, if you go through the process, you will produce a plasma. We use different processes. The more we know about the nano coating process and what have you, the process changes a little bit. We might start that we work with the sodium hydroxides or the hydrochloric acid. You're just basically building up layers of carbon, and doing it in this way makes a lot of sense to people. when you see, well, my piece of copper's gone black or grey in the fire, I can tell you, you're just building up layers of carbon, and those layers are very conductive. Did you see the little video I recently put of just a little pot? I took a piece of copper like that, did the same thing, put it in the fire, and scratched off the carbon into a little pot, and then through the pot, moved around my finger, and boom, all those little flakes of carbon were dancing around all over.
Yes, I did see that. That was really neat.
These are the little examples to show you. And again, it's happening through its container, you know, the energy's coming.
Yes.
There's an interaction there, you know. These are just visuals that people can look at that will maybe make it click, because some of us don't have that scientific brain.
And looking at this picture that shows the different levels of nanomaterials, how
the process, right? And we're able to, there are different ways of doing this, and you know, at the high end of the industry that we're not getting to know the tools and the tricks of, which is something that the Keshe Foundation, it's wonderful that they've opened up this information, because it's made it available for the guy on the street like me.
Absolutely.
But you know, on the industry side of things, they're working with graphene and it's the same stuff. They're creating superconductive materials by building up layers of carbon, and we're trying to deconstruct. You know, why aren't we taught this stuff at school? It's a question to ask.
Right.
Why have we not been given this information? I wish I was taught this stuff at school, because it would have directed me on a slightly different path, you know. And it's great that we're demystifying this stuff. To me, it gives me a lot of pleasure that we're opening up this knowledge.
Right. So we're creating thousands of nano layers on the carbon that will create conductivity of the plasma.
Yep. You're just on the atomic level, where the atoms and the molecules are tightly packed together in the matter state, move it into its nano state, and you've opened them slightly.
Right. And then
the energy now shifts in between those atoms and molecules a lot more freely. Open it up into a plasma, pop. You've got loads of space, and you're dealing with the space in between the matter. And where the light is, right? The light energy. And what is quantum physics? We're dealing with, break everything down and down and down and down and down, you get into light, which is what we are, you know? So to me, it's, there's a couple of missing ingredients that we didn't get told in school and what have you. And this is what we're now making that available for people, for it to start to make sense. And now we're getting in touch with our light energy, and that's what we all are.
And so we use the nano-coated copper to make this liquid GANS. And we will have some how-to videos at the end of this as well that you made really simply.
And you're able, to me, it's like, you know, an old-fashioned word for this is alchemy. And we're playing with the elements and the existing elements, and we're changing its state. So the green one you're looking at there is moringa. It's a plasma of moringa. And so we're able to take the existing elements, be it the herbs, or be it the metals, or be it the minerals, and we're able to change that state from the matter state, moving it through into a plasmatic state. And all you're doing is opening up its structure. Space for energy to move. And the other beautiful thing is, and this is, to me, why I'm interested in this stuff, is it's the ultimate sustainability, because the image you're looking at there of those jars of plasma, we don't need to use it. We can use them, and there are applications where you will use the actual plasma, but basically throw clean water in there, and the information of that plasma copies into the clean water. The moment they mix up, and your plasma will separate to the bottom again. Now you've got a water which appears to just be a nice clean water, but the information in that water is the same as the plasma. So now you've created a mother that can supply an endless supply of this liquid plasma that we can take away pain, replenish the garden, and all the rest.
Nourish our bodies. And even having these jars of GANS in our home is nourishing to us. I remember when I was traveling around on tour, and we had so much GANS with us, people would feed us, and we just look at each other and go, wow, we're stuffed, you know, because we were already getting fed by the GANS. And
exactly.
without even taking it in. We're used to 3D, eating food, having to drink something. And people write me over and over, well, can I drink it? Can I drink it? And the truth is, all you really need is to have it in your field. We have little spray bottles, and we spray it and smell it and breathe it in and have it sitting in a jar on our countertop. And
Exactly.
we are being nourished and fed. So at some point, we won't have to kill anything to eat, including plants. And it's just a whole new way of existence for us to be moving into.
Yeah, and for me, the interesting thing now is that we're moving into a point where we're realizing that we are the plasma.
Yeah.
So ultimately, tap into those fields that are there. That I explain to folks a nice way of getting your head around this is most people know and have been educated that, okay, here's a piece of food, we eat it, we chew it, it goes down into our stomach, and it meets what? The acids of our stomach.
Correct.
And at that point, all that's happening, it's the same process that we do when we use sodium hydroxide or hydrochloric acids. It gets put, the condition gets changed, and you end up with a nano liquid inside you, which ultimately becomes a plasma. And at that point, you're extracting the energy from the food you've eaten. So we're doing it already. We are little plasma devices, and that in turn feeds all the organs and gives us our energy and what have you. And look, we know that stuff already. It's just giving it a slightly different angle. Basically, we've learned how to do what our bodies do naturally as we eat and we drink.
Yes.
Our bodies convert that energy into a plasmatic energy and feeds us. So ultimately, we can learn how to tap into those energies without needing these little tools that, to me, they're a bridge.
They're a bridge.
This moment in time we're in now, where we're all wooed by this, or some of us are wooed by the plasma, it's a bridge leading us to the point where
it's
we get to a point where we don't need it. Yeah.
Teaching us to experience our existence in new ways. And this plasmatic field that surrounds us all the time can nourish us. It can right our imbalances. It can bring to the body what it needs. The body can take from the field what it needs, and balance can be created. It's just us getting past our blocks that keep us thinking we're dying or we're sick or there's something wrong with us or we're out of balance, and just seeing that we're in this living, breathing field that can right us. And these beautiful elementary tools of this plasma science are here to teach us that.
And there's a lot of deconstruction needs to happen now. We need to dissolve a lot of that programmed stuff that we've gone through, having gone through whatever the education process was and whatever that rat race job that you can,
yes,
depending on the person, the individual, we've ended up in these positions where we're surrounded with this, what's been put on us, and let's liberate ourselves from it. Let's dissolve that stuff that tells us, we're all going to get ill. You've got to go to the doctor. You need pharmaceuticals. You need chemicals. Let's dissolve that stuff away and start to understand how to get our systems working properly, because, that's what's going to ultimately change the paradigm as more humans start to empower themselves again and get back into their, their original form.
Right.
And the world, the universe is our oyster at that point in time, and off we go. We're going to start, then we will leaps and bounds. Then you're going to start, when humanity clicks there is when you're going to start to see the free energy device and the real space travel, where you're not just burning stuff to get up in the air and then fall back. We're coming into a real conscious expansion at that point.
Yes, I love these little flashcards you created. They're really helpful. It's helpful to have a visual. I'm actually building out some pages at my website also, 21stcenturysuperhuman.com. And maybe I'll put a Tom Salas section where people can download some of these sheets that you share. But basically, we look at the matter state at the bottom where the molecules are all really dense. We nano coat as we do the copper in the fire or with caustic, moving the molecules so they're a little more open, and then in the plasmatic state the molecules are open and loose, so
and
there's energy can move.
There's a state that's missing off the card there also, and that's the free plasma state, and that's the stuff that you will no longer see, but be whatever it is, if that's your little plasma thing, you know, that's the stuff that's going on around here.
Right.
That's where you won't get a visual on it, but that's the free plasma. And so if you're somewhere close to a pot of plasma or whatever it is, free plasma is where it's completely open. And to me, in my opinion, at that point, you've moved into light.
Yes. And that's what I call the field. I think it's what quantum physicists are calling the field.
Yep.
I know Mr. Keshe doesn't have much to say about quantum physics. I use it as a baseline.
Yeah.
And it's a nice way of going from the matter state into understanding there's more at work here than just what we see.
I listened to a beautiful chat with you talking to Sasha Stone about this stuff, and he explained it beautifully. When you break it down and break it down, and then you get to that point, like, where's the edge between that matter that we think we are and the light? It was a beautiful explanation. I encourage people to listen to that chat. It was beautiful.
Nice, thanks. Yeah, one of my favorite voices of these times.
Yeah, wonderful guy.
Yep. So we are going on and on here. We're trying to really cover a lot of territory between what you experienced in Dominica and what you taught when you were there, how you were able to look at how would one recover or create an oasis in a disaster situation or to prevent disaster occurring. You know, the best is prevention, so that if we're living in this way already, but then how would one rebuild? And so you actually made your GANSs. There's these little instructions on how to produce a plasma of zinc at room temperature. Somebody could screenshot this, or they can you send these out. We'll get them up where people can access them.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever you match against that piece of nano-coated material, be it copper or whatever, the element that you match it against generally will be the plasma that you produce.
Perfect. It's so simple, simple, simple. So if we're wanting to make GANS, which is what we call the gas in the nano state, or the liquid, you're putting seawater or salt water in the container, and you're putting your nano-coated copper in there and running a wire in between, and another material such as zinc or iron or copper.
In the ideal world, I in these times, I would shy away from using seawater, because there's a lot of just about every element on the planet is present in the seawater. So there are a lot of things that we would want, the beneficial stuff, but there are some that we don't want also in the seawater. Right. If that's all you've got, no problem. Go ahead and create the plasma with it. I was showing that because, you know, in a disaster scenario, if you're wanting to replenish the plants and you wanted to relieve pain, that might be all you have. Go ahead.
And the seawater GANS is a slightly different process than this here, because we're doing basically a container to make the GANS. But if we did a specifically seawater GANS, we might just add caustic to the seawater, and then we have something that can be used as a fertilizer and help replenish the earth.
And for me, as a long-time vegetarian, I know that there's a lot of life in the seawater also. So, you know, at that point, it's like, give thanks to the life that have given themselves for that, to create that. Because, so for me, I like to work with the salts if possible. Ideally, I work with the pink Himalayan salt or the on-land salts. You know, there are salts from the ocean, there are salts from on land, and you know, they energetically, they have different properties. So you play with that when you start working with the plasma.
Right. I look at all the things you've got in this picture. You've got a nice piece of chicken wire, which has zinc on it. Looks like another piece of zinc over there. Your little health pen.
Right. I cut up, I think I cut up a bucket that was zinc coated.
Right. Nice.
Chicken wire. I basically walked with a kit that was this big to Dominica, and it had a few of those little bottles of plasma that I could show as a visual example.
Nice.
And it had a few of the metals there that if there was a chance we couldn't find it somewhere, I could still show it.
Nice.
In fact, I came back with that little bag on the left there. I didn't need to use it because, as we said before, the elements are all there for you. You just got to go and gather them. Wherever you are, you will find something that you can use.
Right. And we are going to add a little video onto the end of this where you show how you found those materials locally.
Yeah, sure. Very locally, because my shack blew down. I was able to, because I had been doing a little bit of farming there, I was able to go and grab a piece of chicken wire. I was able to go and grab a piece of whatever it was, an old extension lead or something, and a container, and you're good to go. You will produce plasma at the end of it.
Nice. Your beautiful friends here putting into practice what you were sharing with them. I see big jar of GANS on the counter there.
Yeah, that was the seawater. That's like the instant. That was the way that I broached the whole subject matter with these guys. Was like, well, look, here's an instant way of doing it, and that was using the sodium hydroxide and boiling seawater, and boom, instantly you get a plasma. The longer way to do it is to use the plates and so on. And there are different, they loved that. Very quickly, once I showed them that process that you can put anything under high temperature, you'll take out the information, and boom, they were off with that. They're like, where's the moringa? I'm going for that turmeric. Where's the turmeric? Okay.
Brilliant. Oh, I love it.
They got it instantly and they were off with it. So I know now these guys are already up and running with that now. I know there's a bunch of plasma engineers there. No matter how basic they're doing it, and that's what's beautiful for me, to see that you can do this stuff anywhere in any environment and it works. You'll get the end result will be the same.
Yep.
And these are earthy guys too. These are roots guys, these guys, they live with their hands in the earth. So for them, this was just lovely. They get it.
Nice. Like they're having a great time.
This guy had a real, this guy had a conscious, a big leap where he's a guy who's already studied his ancient knowledge, and they're guys that have got their heads buried in ancient books, and they read their Bible and so on, and so this information to this guy here was just mind-blowing. He was just like, he started to understand. He was making the elixir of life, and he was like, he had a real expansion in the time that we were there.
Nice.
And this girl was one of the families that were displaced. Her home was completely gone, so she had to go and beg these guys if they could let her and her daughter stay there. And they opened their door to her, and that's one of the things about plasma tech. We learn that, you get into the state of giving.
Yes.
And that energy gets matched. And it did. Look, I came back in there with something that I could show those guys, and that's how the universe works. Energies get matched.
Nice. Yes. So did you make the moringa with the seawater GANS, or did you make it?
Yes, we boiled the seawater. We took a strong container, shook some sodium hydroxide crystals into the strong container, put the moringa leaves laid them on top of the crystals, the sodium hydroxide, and added the boiling seawater. Got the lid on very quick. I was trying to make these guys be safety conscious while they were doing it, and they didn't give two hoots about that.
Right.
So they were all tops off and whatever, and just doing it. I'm telling them, look, please, put some gloves or something. But everyone will work at their own.
Right. And so after that percolated a little bit, did you go through the rinsing process where you rinse to get clean water on top?
That's the image that you saw where the guy had the syringe and he was squirting that into the container. They were in that cleaning process there. And as I'd explained on one of the Knowledge Seekers workshops there, they were instantly, I said, this is a caustic material, so, try not to handle it too. And of course their hands were just straight in it, like, no, we want to know what. And they were feeling it, touching it, and they got very quickly that this is quite close to the soap making process.
Yes.
Which to me is a very interesting thing, that we've been working with soap for a very long time, and we changed this. You work with caustic soda and sodium hydroxide when you're making soaps and so on. Right. And they just got all these little the dots connected for them, But the one guy there that I was telling you that had his expansion, that he was in it and smelling it, and he said, "Boy, I know that smell. Boy, what's that? Sperm."
Yeah. Wow.
Boom, right, and this guy just got a sudden connection, and I was like, "Right, you get it now. We're dealing with the fundamental elements of life, and we're playing with them, to a point we're playing with it and trying to understand it." But for him, boom, that was like, wow, okay, so I get it. we're creating life. And at that point,
Nice.
my teaching expanded in that basically every plasma that we create has that same strength as the sun. You know, they're radiating energy, and you're creating a conscious entity at the point in time when you start working with plasma and creating plasmas. And these guys loved it, man. They just,
fantastic. Beautiful. So you rinse that for about 6 or 7 days until you get a water on top that's sweet and clear. Again,
the ideal scenario would not to be used sodium hydroxide. If you can get a food grade caustic, it is better. You don't even need, in reality, you can actually create a kit with the plates, like we call it a CO2 kit with the plates. And you can add ingredients into that, and the information of the ingredients you would add to the kit would then process through into the fields will interact with the CO2. If it's a zinc, the CO2 kit. And so there are different ways you can do it. So ideally, if you're creating plasmas that you're working with that you might be consuming and so on with the liquid plasma, we don't consume the actual plasma. Better if you don't work with those hardcore chemicals. If you do, as I had to explain to these guys, just make sure you wash it again.
Yes.
And obviously, as you're using it, you're washing it also.
Yes.
So you can't have enough washing.
And washing means you pour out the water, the clear water part after it settles, and you keep this what looks like solids in the bottom, but the colored material. And
essentially,
it off and adding
it's a diluting process.
Yes.
So according to the size of the container, if I have plasma in my container and I want to wash out this caustic or this salt water, it's going to take me 10, 20 times if it's in that cup. If I've got a container that's huge with this much plasma in it, I'll dilute it, and you might find it's cleaned up in one wash. So according to the scenario and the condition,
Cool. Okay, we're almost done here. We'll talk about a few little items that you have to share, how these things work. I know you made up some plasma items and sold them to people so that they could help support your journey over here.
Yeah, we make a bunch of different stuff. For me, I love working in the health and wellness department. To me, that's lovely when you can get people up and healthy. So we make different, like right now, I'm sending these things off around the world. These are locally produced pillows. So we're trying to promote, like we're helping out the local folks here where I am as well, who are producing these.
Nice.
We just put these patches inside them, and that's just a nice absorbent, kitchen roll, something like that, inside a Ziploc. We just wet that with the liquid plasma and then put it on the pain, if the pain be in your neck, as is in the image there, and your pain will reduce. So we send these things off around the world, and the folks that are not interested in learning, although ultimately they do come back, and a lot of people start off buying something and then want to know how. So we teach it too. You know, we make these little devices that can structure water. We make cosmetics. That's a soap.
And then you even have a doggy that you have bathed in plasma water, and he's gotten better, right?
Yeah, there you're looking at Tito. And the top image was the day that we found Tito. He was a street dog, and he was probably not too much longer for this planet. You know, he was on his way out, and in about a month and a half or 2 months, all we did was bathe him and give him the plasma water to drink. And there you go, the image at the bottom. You can see he's like a new dog, and he's full of life, and still is. He's got
beautiful. Did you just add a little of the clear plasma water to his drinking water, or?
Yep, we use the CO2 zinc oxide water.
Nice.
Put that in.
Which is what has been shown in laboratory tests to be completely non-toxic to humans when it's made properly.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to create a plasma of mercury and go and start drinking the water. I'm sure it would be detrimental to your system. You know, so it's worth educating yourself a little bit about what's relevant to what. So we use different elements. For example, a dog like Tito there was in a state of trauma. and he'd had a really rough start to his life, you know. So the zinc oxide, it correlates to the emotionality of any living thing. And, you know, so for him, it was like wrapping him in a blanket of love, and it would help to calm him. It would help him to reassure him. And we used a drop of CuO, which is copper oxide, in there also. That's a very good cleaner. It's very good for bacteria. It's very good for, like, we didn't even worm him or anything. He didn't go to bed. We did nothing there. So you use the elements to supply the energy required for whatever different department needs a boost, basically.
Right. Very nice. And I know there's some, I'm working on putting a page up on my website. There's public teachings from the Keshe Foundation. There's private teachings that just cost 150 euros a year, not much. There's a whole process of what we are here to be, how we're learning this, how to put it to practice. We just like to encourage everybody out there to try it. You know, try making your own GANs, or buy some things from Tom or other people that are putting them out. I know there's shops through the Keshe Foundation that carry a smaller number of things, but this is an emerging new science. We're in elementary school learning the magic of how to restore our world, build a beautiful, healthy world, simply by using this life-giving field that we live in as souls and who are designed to operate from the heart of love. And
exactly, we're babies learning how to walk, as I see it, and we really are babies at this point in time, and there is no point in running before we can walk. And a lot of people want to skip all what we've been talking about today and go straight to the cream, which is like the free energy device or the replicator or whatever else, you know. And these are, you know, they're Star Trek type devices which everyone's waiting for, and they ain't going to come to us until we have reached a point where we can responsibly use them. And when humanity makes that little leap, this stuff's there for us. You know, I know, we've got friends who are working in this stuff, and we're seeing it every day that they're advancing, and we can see where it's going. I can see where we're going to be in 10 years' time, and we're not going to be. Life isn't going to be like it is now, you know, but it's a process. And to me, we've got to move through this. It's a learning curve, and the more people we can inspire to have a look, and plasma is one thing, you know, we can do this working purely through spirit and consciousness, and the end result we might get to the same place, you know. So there are many ways we can get here, but I think the aim here being, let's try and inspire people to start looking at these different ways and different tools that we now have, because they're here and it's exciting stuff. And when you start tinkering around with it, inevitably it's going to end up inspiring you to inspire someone else.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, it's fun, it's exciting, it's interesting, and it makes you feel healthful and vibrant and alive. And what fun is that? It's really really,
that's the ultimate, and it's there for everyone. I am not a scientist. As far as the system is concerned, I'm a failure. I didn't do well at school, and all that kind of stuff was not for me. And here I am doing stuff which, when people on the outside look in, they see this as like, wow, this dude's some kind of physicist. No, I've only understood it in its absolute basics. I'm still a baby in the whole. There are guys out there that are, you know, leap years ahead of me doing this stuff, but I'm able to, as we said the other day, you know, there is A to Z when you're studying this stuff. And right now, what we're talking about is A. And I'm not bothered about getting to B yet. I don't care. I'm not even interested in B yet, because A is so interesting. And so it's a process. Yeah, let's hope that people get inspired. Let's hope that people will want to start working with the plasma, because in there lies some answers for sure.
Yes. So we'll go ahead and put on, after these, I'll add on to the end of the video some of your little tutorials that you sent from Dominica when you were there, and invite everyone to breathe and smile. Explore the free plasma energy teachings that are put out by the Keshe Foundation every week. Become possibly a certified instructor and share with others, or just make these things at home buy them from other people that are making them if that's your preference, and let us grow into this new phase of human civilization where we're really serving the greater good of all.
Yeah, exactly. And share your experience too, because every shared experience is an exposure to the next person, and who knows, it might really help that next person.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much, Tom. Thanks for being with us today. Many blessings. Be well.
Thank you.
And we'll
Thank you,
catch
Carrie. Thanks a lot for giving us the opportunity to have that chat.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
We'll catch you on the trail. Ciao, everyone.
Bye for now.
Hi guys. Okay, a scenario for you to contemplate. Imagine if you were in a mad hurricane and everything blew away and you were alright, you found yourself, you're living at the end of it, and you're wondering what the hell to do next. Okay, so here's what I would do. First, I would go to my little cherry tree if it was still standing, and I would find a cherry and give myself some vitamin C. Next thing I would do is I would walk over to my house that perhaps had blown away, and I would start to salvage what I can to make plasma. So, first thing I'm going to do is find some wood, because I'm going to make a fire. Wood is not a problem, we have plenty of wood. Next thing I'm going to do is have a look what I can find. So, for example, okay, there's a box of old cables from my music stuff. Tons of copper inside there. We can get our wire for copper. We're looking for a couple of things. Copper, rusted iron, something galvanized, which is zinc, salt if we've got salt. If we haven't, we can go down to the sea. It might be a bit of a walk because we're going to be climbing over trees and debris, but we can get to the sea if we need salt. And a couple of containers. We'll make a fire and we're good to go. We can make our own little survival kit there that we can feed ourselves, take away pain, get the plants growing again, and a bunch of cool stuff. Just using elements we've got kicking around after our house has blown down. Alright, so first thing I can see is that fella there. That is a piece of chicken wire. And it's gone rusty. That's perfect. That's going to give us a plasma of iron, CH3. If there's a bit that hasn't rusted anywhere, it's going to be galvanized, and that's going to have zinc on it. We're going to use that bit for, there we go. An unrusted piece of galvanized. Oh God, where have I put the other piece now? Ah, there it is. Okay. So we've got some copper in our cables. Oh, even better, there's an old extension lead. We'll take the copper out of there. We've got our iron. We've got our zinc. We've got our copper in our extension. Oh, even better, look at that. That's copper. Coppers are very easy to bend, soft, bronzy, coppery coloured metal. So I'll clean that up. We're going to clean that up with a bit of lime and salt. The next thing we want is a container, a couple of containers. I mean, worst case scenario, you could even use an old cup. We'll take that anyway and make a cup of tea when we have a fire. So, believe it or not, with that pile of stuff there, we can make what plasma we need to keep ourselves and Mammy and Granny and whoever else alive, fed and in a good state of health through what might be some mad scenario like your house blowing down. Okay, let's see what we can do. Bye. Alright, I'm going to do my best to show you how we can nano coat a little piece of copper like this in the fire. I'm just going to pop it on there. Don't know if you can see this or not, but I've just dropped my piece of copper into the fire, and you're going to see it slowly change colour. I've made loads of videos before now showing this, but here we are doing it in a real life disaster scenario. We're nano coating our copper in the fire. You'll see it changing colour slowly. Layers are building up. Some people will say that that has not been correctly nano coated and it's not right and it won't work and all the rest. Sorry, but when you're in this kind of scenario, this is what you've got. So this is how you do it, and I'm going to show you. It does work. You do make plasma. The plasma works, and it's good to know. So that to me is something like ready to roll. It's as simple as that. You've just put a few little layers on there that are making it slightly more conductive than it was as a normal piece of copper. You're going to join that together to another piece of metal, sit it in salt water, and you have made a plasma reactor. Simple as that. Too simple for some. Okay, we're here by the fireside. I've gathered together a few bits and pieces. An old tray, a dominoes tray. Never did like dominoes. It's a weird game. An old piece of copper. An old piece of chicken wire, gone rusty. Another piece of chicken wire that hasn't gone rusty. An old extension lead that we've ripped out the wire. I'm not going to show you how to do that. You'll work that out. Old bottles. So now we're putting together our plasma reactors. I'm going to try and do this as fast as possible so it doesn't take a lot of time on the video. So let's start with this one. That's a piece of iron that has been galvanized. That means it's got zinc on the outside of it. That means if we make a little reactor with that, we're going to make a zinc and CO2 combination. So all we do, chop 5-6 inches of wire, let's say 5 inches, 2 pieces, like that. One of the pieces, wrap it around your piece of galvanized chicken wire, like this. All I'm doing is just getting a nice tight connection. Voila. If you've got a pair of pliers, tighten it up as much as you can. Brought my pliers with me. I'm a good camper. So that's a nice tight connection. Now we've already nano coated our little bits of copper in the fire. We want to avoid handling it as much as possible, or handle it around the edges so that you're not disturbing the nano layers that we've created. You're going to do the same thing, just put your piece of copper through the hole, small there. Let me just open that up with an old nail. So you can see we've got a hole in our piece of copper. We're going to do the same thing, trying to avoid handling it like I said, but just wrap your copper wire around it. Close it up. As tight a connection as you can, the better. There you go. Now we join the two pieces together at the top by just twisting those two pieces together. Lovely. Now you've got your two pieces joined together. You've got a container. It's just a plastic bottle cut off to about 5 inches. You're going to sit the two into the container like that. Voila. That is a plasma reactor. Now the only component we're missing is salt water. If you haven't got salt water, just go and get some seawater. It will work. It's not perfect, but it will work. Plasma reactor. One piece of copper that I've thrown in the fire, one piece of chicken wire that's zinc coated, joined them together with 2 pieces of copper and sat it in salt water. Now all we do is just leave that for a couple of days and we're going to have a nice little plasma of zinc, which is the coating on the chicken wire. It's going to miraculously pull down some CO2 out of the environment for us also, which is great. And then we have our plasma. The next one we're going to make using a domino tray. You have your old piece of rusty chicken wire. We add our piece of copper, which the fancy word for it is electrode. We join it together, we get a nice tight connection. Now we take another piece of nano-coated copper, join that together, same thing, just whack a hole in it, and twist it. And join the two together. This is going to make us what we call CH3, which essentially is iron, which is being provided by the rusty part of that chicken wire, and that iron can be an energy source, food. So now all we do, pop them in our dominoes tray like that. Add salt water. Plasma reactor. Nano-coated copper and a piece of rusty iron on the other side. That's going to make us CH3. I'm running out of video time, but I'll do it quickly. The next one to make, there's a normal piece of copper with a hole in it. there's your nano coated copper. Join them together in the same style with 2 pieces of copper, put them in salt water, and that's going to make you what we call CuO, which is a plasma of copper. So the plasma of copper is very good for our physicality. Will respond well to the red meat parts of our body, good for muscles and injuries. The CH3 is an energy provider. It's very good. We can almost use that as like a food source. The CO2 zinc oxide is very good for our emotional support. You can use it as a pain reliever also. Pretty much all plasma will relieve pain, but that's going to provide emotional support, as well as it will respond to our nervous system, and it's a bit of a brainer. So we've got the 3 there: the physicality, the emotionality, and the energy. The energy also correlates to a soul connection, and that soul connection equals mind, body, soul. We covered the 3 there, and if you have those 3 plasmas, you can do a lot with them, and it's as simple as that. That's all we need to show you for now. Thanks a lot. Bye. Yo, okay, that was our lovely garden. Here we are inside our super adobe home, which is very strong, very resistant. Very nice place to live, especially through disaster. And what I have here are my 3 plasma reactors, which I set up the other day, just with whatever bits and pieces I could salvage out of my little shack that got blown down. Here you can see it has a little bluish tinge to it. That's our copper. Here you can see it's got a little whitish colour to it. That is our zinc, and this one, it's a bit tricky to see, but it's kind of a orangish colour, and that is our iron. We can use those 3 elements now to do many different things and to serve us and help us as we move through our disaster scenario, in which there is disease, hunger, dirty water, crops that are failing, soil with no nutrition, and all the rest. So what I'm showing you there is that just with the couple of bits and pieces from the garden, or from my little shack that blew down, we've created 3 plasma reactors that have created us plasma. We did nothing more than throw these pieces of copper plate into the fire. We let them build up some layers of carbon. We've connected them to another metal. In this case it's a piece of copper. In this case it's a piece of galvanized chicken wire, and in this case it's a rusted piece of chicken wire, and each one is helping us to create a supply of that element which we can then create more of using that mother that we've just created. It's a process. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean out the salt water. We used seawater there because it's what we had. I'm going to clean out that seawater, and let's see the little bit of plasma that we've made after 2, maybe 3 days. I don't know. Time has dissolved out here, and I don't even know how many days have passed, but basically what I'm showing to you is that with those couple of bits and pieces we have created plasma, and that plasma can now be a tool for us which we can use for our benefit and the benefit of granny, auntie, uncle, daughter, brother, whoever else is in need. Alright, thanks a lot. Bye. So what I'm going to do now is just decant the substance of each of these little reactors into a glass bottle so you can see what we've produced. I would normally take time to take off the little oily layer that is on the surface of these, which is a bit tricky to see in this light. I don't know if you can see it, but that little oily layer is what we know as amino acids, and they have a couple of little functions too within what we know about plasma, but I'm not going to go into it right now because it's not totally relevant to what we're doing at this point in time. So I'm going to ignore that for now and just take out the plates. It was a nano-coated copper plate, it was a nano-coated copper plate next to a rusted chicken wire, and that's given us this. As you can see, it's a beautiful orange colour. That is CH3, and the majority of what we're looking at there is iron. This one was a nano-coated copper plate next to a piece of galvanized chicken wire. So the reaction that we've created is with the first layer of that chicken wire, which is zinc. That's the galvanized. On this piece the zinc had worn away and it had started to rust, so we came in contact with the iron. That's why it produced an iron for us. This one is producing zinc because the zinc coating is still intact. So what we will have here, I hope, is a white substance. This one is a plasma of copper. We have put an unnano-coated piece of copper next attached to a nano-coated piece of copper that we just threw in the fire, built up the carbon layers. That's produced us a plasma of copper. This one usually takes much longer to produce. I don't know why. As you can see there, it has that nice greenish bluish tint to it, and I'm quite happy with a couple of days production there. Zero boost, that means we haven't given it any charge in between these two electrodes. We've just done it the very simple way. Plasma technology can get very complicated if you want it to, but in its essence is very simple. And so there you can see the three plasmas we've created: iron, zinc and copper. I've also, while I'm here, made a plasma using a different technique out of seawater, and that is a really good fertilizer for the garden. I don't advise using seawater in health applications, particularly unless you know, which is very difficult, that your seawater is super clean. I've tried to collect the seawater here from a as clean as possible area with as few houses in the area as possible, but that I'm happy to use on my garden, and I've just done a workshop in which I've showed the farmers how to produce, well, those ones too, but we made this one in a moment, and everybody was able to take away their plasma and feel what it is, understand what it is that we've created and what we can do with it, some of the applications of it. And once you get to know a little bit about this stuff, inevitably you want to know more, because it's true sustainability what we're doing here. So in just 2 or 3 days, with a pile of junk that I found blowing around after my house had blown down, we have what can supply us energy, what can remove pain, what can clean, and all of those will help us through what might be some kind of a tight scenario after a disaster. That's what I'm here doing, that's what I'm here sharing with folks. Also sharing them a little bit how to create your nice environment that will still have a roof after a hurricane. Super adobe building, very nice, it's good vibes, feels nice to be in it. So when you blend together those two things, plasma and super adobe building, you're getting close to being in your little oasis, while maybe the rest of the world is feeling the pinch a lot more than you are. There you go. Thanks a lot. Bye. Hi guys. Okay, I realize I have quite a few friends in Facebook who maybe are new and are watching the work I'm doing with plasma and wondering what on earth I'm talking about. So I'm going to bring anyone who's interested up to speed here on basically what I mean when I'm talking about plasma. So we understand 3 states, those of us that are looking at plasma technology: matter, nano and plasma. There are actually more states than this, but we'll keep it simple. Matter being like this moringa branch here, that is in the matter state. Nano, an example of nano or a nano material, it would be if we take that moringa branch and burn it into ashes, those ashes are now in the nano state. We then can move into the plasmatic state. There are various different ways we can do that. We can put this matter under a high temperature using sodium hydroxide or using hydrochloric acid, or there are many other ways that we can do that. And we can create, from that matter state, we move through into the nano state and end up in the plasma state. So in the nano state, what you're looking at here are the atomic structures. So in the matter state, you've got tightly packed atoms and molecules. They're packed together and they're vibrating and they have their strength, but it is not as much as when you move it into the nano state. So for example, we've burnt that moringa branch down into its ashes. It's now vibrating slightly more than when it was in the nano state, the matter state, sorry. And what we can do once we've moved something into the nano state, for example, if I take a spoonful of those ashes, mix it into water like this, those ashes, because they're vibrating at a slightly higher order now, we'll be able to structure that water and clean it. Now, I could have put my moringa branch in there and we would have affected the water slightly, but because we're using the moringa in its nano state, it's vibrating at a higher order, and what it's doing is it's cleaning up what's in the water there. In its nano state, it's soaking up and absorbing some of those energies and the matter that's in there that we don't want in there, and it's going to pull it down to the bottom. As that ash drops down to the bottom, it will bring all the crap and the dirt that we don't want with it. So we're left with that top 50% of that water, after a couple of washes in that same way, will be drinkable from being dirty water. That's one way you can purify water. So there's a lot more potential energy once we've moved it into its nano state. But when we move it into its plasma state, now there is a whole lot of energy there that can move around freely. And what's really cool is when you have created a plasma like this, it's vibrating at such a speed or at such a higher order than the matter state that it can actually move through its container. So at that point we're able to start doing some pretty cool stuff with plasma. So the basic process, once you've got a plasma, for example, here is a jar of plasma, and what we are able to do is energize any clean water that we mix with our plasma in the same way we just did with those ashes there. We can do that with our plasma, and as you mix the two together, the plasma is going to energize the water, and the information that we've captured in the plasma, which may be moringa, for example, is going to be transferred into that clean water. And then your plasma will separate down to the bottom again, and you'll be left with a clear water, and it has the same strength as the actual plasma. So this is great. This is sustainability. You've created a substance there that you can now use as, say, the mother, and we just keep adding clean water to that, and we use the water. We don't need to use the plasma. So you've created a never-ending supply of an energy source, which you can use to relieve pain, which you can use in the garden to make your plants grow. You can use it on your animals to keep your animals in good health. It's full spectrum. Plasma can be used right across the board for optimizing energy. There are many uses for plasma. So that's as simple as I can put it, basically. Moving through the states from the matter state into the nano state and into the plasmatic state. And that one is vibrating at a higher order, and that's why we like working with the plasma. There is one more state after this, and that is the free plasmatic state. And that's the stuff that's going on around here. The energy is being pumped out, but we don't see it in any way, shape or form. But it's there. That's what we call free plasma. So I hope that makes sense, and feel free to pop a question in there. If I can help you, I will. Thanks a lot. Bye now.